Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to review the latest episode of Batwoman. It was called And Justice for All. And in the opening sequence, we see the new Kate with a proper face on. Of course, it's the face of the new actress who was previously in the short-lived series Krypton. And as we said at the end of last week's episode, Alice says, "You have our father's eyes. I know you. You're Kate." And she realizes, that it's Kate, and Kate's still alive. But of course, Kate thinks she's Cersei still, so I don't know. But Alice decides to take her leave, and they basically threaten her, don't say anything. She's like, I won't say anything, and she goes. Then we cut to Gotham City, and Batwoman is in a fight in the streets, and it seems like she's confronting some kind of zombie guy that has some kind of zombie thing going on. We don't know. Is it a virus? Is it bad drugs? It's probably snake bite. But we don't actually know. So there's that scene, which is good. Again, you want to see the hero in the suit fighting, even if it's just something silly like that. I'm talking to you, Flash people. Anyway, this occurs, and it seems to be happening around the city, but nobody really knows about it yet. And there's a scene now at the bar that Ryan owns/runs, where they're having a fundraiser and playing music, and some cops show up, and they say they got a noise complaint. And Ryan kind of gives them the business, and the cops are being jerks. And it winds up that Ryan and Luke get arrested. And they spend the next couple of scenes that we see them in a GCPD jail cell. Sophie shows up to the bar looking for them. And she's a crow, so she's kind of law enforcement. So she's not taking any of this guy's crap, which I liked. I liked seeing her bow up against him. But it ended up getting her arrested as well. So she gets thrown in jail also. Meanwhile, Alice has Enigma captive, basically hanging from the ceiling. And she's trying to figure out from her how to unlock Katie's mind now that she knows Katie's alive and thinks she's this Cersei person. And Enigma's trying to explain it to her. She says, you're going to need something of Kate's to break the spell that was, dear to her. So bring it to me and I'll help you. Which I thought was interesting because I was hoping they had set Enigma up to be this big bad kind of, and she's really not. She kind of just had some cursory involvement with the plot. But it was better than not having her, I think. They were going to have that character anyway, who facilitated that role. I think it's good that they made it Enigma. It's a nice Easter egg. Anyway, now we cut to Daddy Kane getting treatment by his daughter Mary for his snakebite thing and coming clean on how he had been abusing snakebite and talks about why. And I thought that was good. Then they cut back to Alice and Ocean because Ocean shows up where Alice is, where she's trying to figure out what she's going to do to get something of Kate's. And it was a good scene because we get to see here where Alice really is a sympathetic character. And they've shown bits and pieces of that along the way, but it's really starting to come to the forefront. She's really somebody that got a raw deal in a big way, and it messed her up, and she turned evil, but she really is a decent person in there. She really does have a heart, and she really does have feelings, and it's starting to come to the forefront, and I think that's great. I love a redemption story. I am a sucker for a redemption story, and as I've been saying all along, this actress does a great job in the part, so I'm hoping that they do this part justice. They seem to be heading in that direction, and I'm happy for it. I wish they hadn't spent so long in season 1 not doing this, because it would have been much cooler, for season 1. It would have been better. But anyway, that's happening. Now, a fear toxin victim shows up seeking treatment. It turns out the fear toxin in snakebite, which wasn't in the original snakebite, but is in it now because they didn't quite know the formula, is making these people crave brains. They're craving other people's brains like zombies because what they really crave are memories, and somehow by eating brains, they're having other people's memories, and I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing, but that's what's happening. So he shows up and chains himself to a gurney at Mary's clinic, and he's seeking treatment. So we're getting a little more information on what's happening with that. Now, we cut back to the jail where there was a whole lot of social justice talk between Luke, Sophie, and Ryan, and I have to say, I thought it was pretty well written. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They didn't write conversations that haven't been seen in a bunch of other shows about the same topic, but they did a good job with it. Sophie talks about how she decided to represent the interests of people of color from within law enforcement. the interests of seeking fair justice from the system. She decided to do that from inside law enforcement. She talks about how she's herself in and out of uniform, whereas Ryan isn't. Ryan is dressed as Batwoman when she does her thing, so part of the time she's not herself. It isn't always her face out there, whereas with Sophie it is, no matter what she's doing. So Ryan realizes that she's right and she apologizes, and I thought it was great writing. I don't know that all of it belonged in the episode. I think some of that stuff did, because there's always been a conflict between Ryan and Sophie, simply because Ryan's had the life that she's had and Sophie is law enforcement. So they were going to have a conversation about how to do the right thing in life, whether they were people of color or not. And so I'm glad they had that conversation and they could sort of see things from each other's perspective, or at least Ryan could start to understand a little bit more about why Sophie is in law enforcement, which was a big source of her not really trusting her, which was an issue for Sophie because she wants to be trusted. So I thought they did a good job fleshing that stuff out. But they had a lot of woke talk in there, which again, doesn't bother me, but it bothers other people and it makes them shit on the show. And you can't really tell them that they're wrong because some of it feels like it's shoehorned in. Like, this isn't a show about law enforcement versus living in the, just living daily life. It's a superhero show. So that stuff shouldn't really creep in, social issues and be that narrow. I don't know. I mean, other shows have done this forever, and I'm a big champion of shows that talk about social issues. I always have been. So, I mean, that's what makes Star Trek great. For example, it's always done that, but I don't know. It's just, it seemed misplaced in this environment, and people who are going to rag on that aren't wrong. And so I wish they wouldn't have gone quite as over the head, hit you quite as over the head with it the way they did. But I did think some good came of it that made sense within the story. So I'm not going to be down on it completely. I thought that parts of it made sense no matter what color the character's skin is. That conversation that they had about Ryan versus Sophie and their approaches to solving problems in terms of how law enforcement exists in the community was good stuff. I thought they were always going to have that conversation because cops aren't always great to white people either. Cops do all kinds of ranked shit in real life to all kinds of people. It's probably disproportionately against people of color, but everybody has had a bad experience with cops. So I think when you have a character that is jaded when it comes to law enforcement and a character who's in law enforcement and they're trying to work together, but they have these sort of opposite approaches and opposite points of view, I think when you have a conversation that brings them closer together as part of the story, it's good no matter what color they are. So I like that. Now, because things start to get crazy with the quote unquote zombies, the GCPD, or the Crows rather, throw up the bat signal. And I'm thinking, good luck, because she's in the pokey. But it turns out that she's not in there for long because she's bailed out by her new girlfriend that they talked about last week, and who doesn't know that she's Batwoman. But Mary does figure out a way to cure the situation, and she gives Ryan a bunch of antidote, which she has to inject one by one into the affected people, which fortunately are very few in number relatively and are sort of located in one place. So Ryan sets out to do this. Now, Ocean and Alice go back to see Enigma, and Ocean gets impatient with her as she's explaining to Alice exactly what she has to do to unlock Kate's memory, and he twists her neck and kills her, at which point Alice freaks out because now she doesn't have the password to unscramble Kate's eggs, as it were. It's weird because during the scene it came out that Enigma was not only doing her criminal stuff, but she was also working as an actual doctor with actual patients trying to help them. Very strange. But like I say, she winds up dead in like a flash of a second, and it was truly a WTF moment, but clearly done so that they can prolong the part of the season where Kate's brains are still scrambled. Also during the scene, there were some great Alice moments as she's talking about Kate. She talks about why she picked Kate's motorcycle keys. And it was because when she was a kid, she was older than Kate and she learned to do everything first. But Kate eventually found her own thing, which, walking, talking, and so forth. Kate eventually found her own thing, which was riding this bike. And for her, it was freedom, freedom from the expectations of her dad and mother, and who was deceased, I guess, and free from, I don't know, freedom. And she spoke quite eloquently about her feelings for Kate, which again, I thought was great character stuff for Alice. But this is kind of what ticks Ocean off and leads him to sort of snap and kill Enigma, because he doesn't want her to bring Kate back around. He doesn't want that because he feels like Alice got screwed by Kate, because when they met up again after however many years apart, after Alice had been in captivity for so long, Kate didn't recognize her under the blonde hair and the new persona and all of that, while Alice immediately recognized Kate from her eyes, even though she had a new face and a new voice and so forth. And Ocean just thought that that said a lot about Kate, that wasn't positive, and that he felt she was bad for Alice. And because he loves Alice, he tells her, he doesn't want Alice to help Kate find herself, because he feels like Kate abandoned Alice, which she basically did. So it was a sort of heart-wrenching scene. But anyway, it seemed like Alice was still determined to wake Kate up, so we're going to see how that goes. There is a scene that comes up as well where we have Sophie and Ryan, and I think it was Mary, sitting at a table at the bar. And they have a little bit of a back and forth about what they all just experienced. And Sophie says, by the way, I'm out. I quit the Crows. And I think that's awesome, because I think what's going to happen is they're not writing the character out, right? She's going to join Team Batwoman, which is what I've been saying for a couple of episodes. I wanted to see happen, and that it seemed like they were working towards where she was going to end up being an official member of the team instead of just collaborating with them. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. Ryan even says to her, they don't deserve you over at the Crows. You're too good for them. We need you. So I'm wicked pumped and excited, because I think that's going to happen. I think it's a great move for the show and the character. So that's going to be awesome. But then there's a scene between Ryan and her new girlfriend, and it seemed like they were breaking up, because Ryan says, there's stuff about me that I haven't told you, and I really can't share all that with you yet. So it sounds like they were breaking up, but maybe not. Maybe she's just saying if we're going to go on, it's going to sort of be from behind a couple of walls or masks still. So we'll see how that goes. The final scene of the episode is a scene where Luke is talking on the phone, I think with Mary, or no, it's Ryan, where he comes across a guy trying to break into a car. And it happens to be a guy that he met briefly while he was in jail. There was a little bit of stupid dialogue with this guy. And the guy happens to be white, and he's breaking into this car. And so Luke approaches him and says, hey, what are you doing? And the guy's like, leave me alone, man. I'm still in this car. And he's like, no, you can't do that. And they're sort of having a conversation about it. The cops show up, and the guy claims to the cops that Luke was actually stealing the car, and he was trying to stop him, which of course isn't true. And Luke's like, what? And he goes to whip out his phone, because he had taken a picture of the guy trying to steal the car before he confronted him. And the moment he takes out his phone, a cop sees it and thinks it's a gun and shoots him, and Luke goes down. So that's not good, because he gets him in the gut. It's not like he wings him in the arm or something. He gets him in the gut, and it doesn't look good. And now the show is off until June 6th. So kind of a cliffhanger there, but I didn't like this moment, not because of Luke, because now they're going to do an episode about the cops shooting people and people of color and the whole thing. And they even showed a preview where you kind of know that's what they're going. And it's, I don't mind watching a show about that. I don't want it to be the Batwoman show. That shouldn't be on the Make that show. I might watch it. They do those stories on Law and Order. I watch that every week. Do that. But not on the Batwoman show. Anyway, I thought this was a pretty good episode. I think there's still too many plots. They've got Alice. They've got Daddy Kane. They've got the snake bite and the false face thing. There's too much going on. They need to trim some of this stuff. Hopefully now that Daddy Kane is off the sauce, as it were, they're not going to continue any of that. I just wish they weren't doing this Luke thing. It's like the writers don't think they can write the rest of the story and make it last for 20 episodes or whatever, without padding it with side stuff. And it's kind of unfortunate because the side stuff mucks up the good stuff that they're doing. And anyway, I'm repeating myself. I've said this all before. So yeah, I don't know what's going to be on in the Batwoman time slot, but obviously I won't be back with a review of Batwoman until June. So there you go. But I will be back at some point. Until then, I say, as always, my friends, peace and long life.